Welcome to the Grow Rich podcast by Tech Help Canada, where we share the best online marketing and general business tips. Now for today's host.
Note, this includes AI-generated narration. Fraud already works without cutting-edge AI. A fake invoice, an urgent payment request, a convincing email from the CEO, a job applicant with polished documents, and a believable story. Small businesses have been dealing with versions of these attacks for years. What changes with AI agents isn't the existence of fraud. It's the speed, scale, and persistence behind it. In 2025, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre received more than 112,000 fraud reports involving over $704 million in reported losses. In the U.S., the FBI said cyber-enabled crimes defrauded Americans of nearly $21 billion, and that AI-related complaints accounted for 22,364 reports and nearly $893 million in losses. Interpol has also warned that AI-enhanced fraud is becoming far more profitable than traditional fraud, and that agentic AI systems can now help plan and execute parts of a full scam campaign. That doesn't mean every scammer suddenly has a fully autonomous fraud machine. Much of it is still manual and often sloppy, but the direction is clear. The better AI gets at researching targets, writing messages, cloning voices, and using tools, the cheaper it becomes to run scams that feel personal enough to work. For entrepreneurs, the risk isn't abstract. One bad transfer, one compromised login, or one fake vendor can turn into cash flow stress, account cleanup, client damage, and a lot of wasted time. What makes AI agents different from regular AI? Most people have already seen generative AI at work. You ask for an email draft, a summary, a post, or a script. It responds. Useful, but still mostly reactive. AI agents take that one step further. They can be set loose on a goal. That might mean gathering information, deciding what to do next, using connected tools, and adjusting based on what happens. They don't just produce content. They can move through a process. That's a big deal because fraud is a process. A scam doesn't start and end with one fake message. It often includes research, impersonation, follow-up, timing, social pressure, and sometimes multiple attempts across different channels. The more of that work AI can assist with, the more efficient fraud becomes. This is where the phrase agentic AI becomes useful. It refers to systems that can pursue a goal with limited supervision. That doesn't automatically make every AI tool dangerous. It does mean fraud can start to look less like one-off deception and more like a low-cost operation. The business fraud scenarios entrepreneurs are most likely to face. The biggest mistake here is assuming the risk only lives in advanced cybercrime. For most small businesses, the danger is much more ordinary. Number 1, fake invoices and payment change requests. This is one of the oldest scams in the book, and AI can make it easier to personalize and harder to spot. A scammer can scrape public details about your company, vendors, leadership, recent projects, or payment cycles. Then they can write a payment request that sounds like it belongs in the thread. If they have access to a compromised email account, it gets even worse. Now, the message arrives in the right tone with the right names at roughly the right time. The point isn't that AI invents invoice fraud. It helps make the fraud feel routine. Number 2, founder or executive impersonation. The small businesses often move fast. If the founder asks for something urgent, people tend to act. That creates an opening for messages that look like they came from the owner, a director, or a senior manager. In some cases, that impersonation may now include AI-generated voice messages or calls that sound familiar enough to lower someone's guard. When a business runs on trust, speed, and informal communication, impersonation gets more dangerous. Number 3, credential theft through better phishing. Phishing is still one of the most reliable ways into a business. The upgrade isn't that phishing suddenly became new. It's that AI can help attackers write cleaner messages, adapt tone to the target, imitate internal language, and test more variations faster. Canadian officials have already warned about campaigns using malicious links, urgent financial requests, and AI-generated voice impersonation targeting business executives and senior public officials. That matters because a phishing message no longer needs to be full of broken grammar to be fake. In fact, good writing is now cheap. Number 4, fake vendors, partners, or applicants. Small businesses are under constant pressure to find partners, freelancers, suppliers, and hires. That creates an easier way in. A fake vendor can use a polished site, realistic branding, a believable email sequence, and solid-looking documents. A fake applicant can use AI polished resumes, generated work samples, and smooth communication to get through an initial screen. Not every fake profile is there to steal money right away. Sometimes the goal is access, information, or a foothold inside the business. Why old trust signals break down? For a long time, people used simple shortcuts to judge risk. Typos meant danger. A strange tone meant danger. A weird voice, a thin story, or an awkward email meant danger. Those shortcuts still help sometimes, but they are weaker than they used to be. A clean email is no longer reassuring on its own. A familiar voice is no longer proof. Public information from social media, company pages, interviews, staff bios, and press mentions can be stitched together into a message that feels uncannily specific. This is where entrepreneurs can get caught off guard. The message doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to feel plausible to one person on one busy day. AI also changes the economics of testing. A scammer can try more angles with less effort than keep what works. That raises the odds that one version of the story will land. And once a response comes back, the follow-up can get better fast. In other words, fraud becomes less dependent on one good guess and more dependent on low-cost iteration. Why small businesses are easier targets than they think. Large companies have their own problems, but small businesses carry a specific mix of risk. And first, they often run lean. The same person may handle operations, finance, vendors, and admin. That works until it doesn't. When too much trust sits with too few people, a well-timed request can slide through. Second, approval workflows are often informal. A business may move money based on a message, a text, or a quick call because that's how things usually get done. Fast communication feels efficient right up until someone uses that speed against you. Third, small teams rely on familiarity. People know each other. They know the usual vendors. They know the founder's style. Ironically, the comfort can create blind spots. Once a message sounds close enough to normal, it may not get challenged. Fourth, many smaller companies now use a stack of connected tools without fully thinking through permissions. Bookkeeping apps, email platforms, cloud storage, CRMs, collaboration tools, payment platforms, and AI assistants all save time. They can also widen the blast radius if the wrong person or system gets access. This is one reason the topic belongs in a small business publication, not just a security blog. The risk isn't only technical, it's operational. The defenses that still work. The good news is that the best defenses aren't futuristic. They're mostly habits, rules, and friction points that stop a bad request before it becomes a costly action. The first is out-of-band verification. If someone wants bank details changed, a payment rushed, login credentials reset, or sensitive files shared, confirm it another way. Not in the same email thread, not through the same text chain. Use a known number, a separate call, or an internal process that doesn't rely on the incoming message being real. The second is two-person approval for sensitive actions. It can feel annoying in a small business, especially when speed matters, but it is still one of the clearest ways to reduce risk. One person can be fooled. Two people using a real process are harder to rush. The third is stronger access hygiene. Multi-factor authentication helps. So does reducing admin access, limiting who can move money, and separating responsibilities where possible. Small teams cannot always build enterprise controls. They can still avoid giving every trusted employee broad access to everything. Then there's a shift in mindset. Treat email, voice, video, and chat as claims, not proof. That may sound paranoid on paper. In practice, it is just updated common sense. Finally, awareness without theater. Staff don't need a dramatic seminar about evil AI. They need a simple understanding that polished messages, urgent requests, and realistic voices are now easier to fake than they were even a year or two ago. How businesses can accidentally open the same door. There's a second risk here that doesn't get enough attention. Some businesses are now experimenting with AI agents internally for support, operations, research, customer service, or workflow automation. That can be useful. It can also create fresh problems if the setup is careless. The problem isn't using AI agents, it's giving them too much power too quickly. If an internal agent can access sensitive email threads, approve actions, trigger payments, change settings, or pull data across multiple systems, the business may be creating the same kind of trust problem it is trying to avoid from outside attackers. Security guidance around AI agents keeps coming back to the same ideas for a reason: least privilege, human review for high-risk actions, cleaner input controls, and better monitoring. That may sound technical, but the business meaning is straightforward. An AI tool shouldn't have more authority than you would give a new staff member on their first week. One useful rule is to separate insight from action. Let AI help summarize, flag, draft, or recommend. Be much more careful when it comes to sending, changing, approving, buying, or paying. That's where a lot of businesses will either stay sensible or get sloppy. The new rule for entrepreneurs. The bigger shift here isn't that fraud has become unbeatable. It's that realism is getting cheaper. That changes the job of the business owner. For years, people could rely on rough edges to help them spot trouble. A weird sentence, a strange request, a voice that felt off, a fake that looked fake. That margin is shrinking. So the new rule is simple: don't confuse polish with legitimacy. The businesses that handle this well won't panic every time AI shows up in a headline. They'll update their trust model. They'll build light but real verification into money movement, account access, and sensitive requests. They'll keep speed where it helps and add friction where a mistake could hurt. That's a useful way to think about AI more broadly, not just fraud. When powerful tools make good work faster, they also make bad work cheaper. The answer isn't to fear every new tool. It's to get clearer about where human judgment still has to sit. For entrepreneurs, that usually means one thing: if the action matters, verify it before you move. This was based on an article from our blog. You can find the full written article on Tech Help Canada, including sources and visuals. If you found this helpful, you can explore more on our website and subscribe or become a member for updates and perks. If you're watching or listening to this on YouTube, Apple Podcast, or another platform, don't forget to like and subscribe to help us keep bringing you valuable content like this.